Hello, everyone, and welcome to On Form's EFL preview show. We are currently live on YouTube as it stands. As we go, if anyone has games you want to talk about, want us to talk about, then please do leave a comment down below. Any opinions for the weekend, do the same, and good to have anyone on board. We've had a bit of a week 2 disaster though. If you can't tell, it's just me here. Ian is currently on holiday with very limited signal. So he did tell me he was going to try and get on this on this live stream at some point, but we will see if that is possible at all. If not, it's just me for the next 45 minutes. It's going to be a pretty good weekend, I think. Premier League may be returning, but EFL is centre of our attention as always. So yeah, definitely excited to get into this weekend. Our current format, we might tweak as we go, but certainly as what we're sticking to right now is probably going to talk through 2 picks of games from each of the Championship, League 1 and League 2, and why we think they're interesting games for the weekend. It's early in the season. We're trying to cover everyone as early as possible, so we're trying not to have repeats on in the first few weeks at least. So there might be some more interesting games that we spoke about one of the teams. We're probably going to leave it for now. So let's get into it. If anyone is watching along, we will have the fixtures we're talking about on screen. So you can follow as we go. So here we are. In fact, before we actually dive into this week's, let's have a quick chat about Thursday night football, which returned last night as Bradford City beat Sheffield Wednesday 1-0 at Hillsborough. Really good win for Bradford. That's 2 from 2 now, yet to concede a goal. I thought in the second half they were brilliant. They were really good. Wednesday started the game better, and they had a few chances early on. Bradford held them at bay, basically, got to half time and scored really early in the second half, and that goal just seemed to take all the wind out of Wednesday's sails. And I thought in the second half Bradford were the better team. I think the stats in the second half as well, you can kind of see that Wednesday only really had those 3 shots, and they weren't the biggest of chances apart from the Jamal Lowe one right at the end, which the Sky cameras almost missed, where he got to a loose ball in the box, but just fired it wide, slightly off balance. But I don't know, it hasn't gone down as a big chance missed on the FootMob stats, but I would argue it probably was. So I think they'll be disappointed to lose that game, but really good win for Bradford nonetheless. Right, back into the Championship. The 2 games we are thinking take our fancy this week. First game, for various reasons, Southampton against Stoke. Initial thoughts, you've got a Southampton side who are looking to make up a 4-point deficit and lost on opening day, so already 7 points behind a Middlesbrough side they finished 11 points with last season, against a Stoke side who has spent a lot of money this summer and who kind of have been circling that lower mid-table for the last 5 seasons and haven't really had anything else to show for that. And it just feels like no matter what they do, they just come into the season, underwhelm, and finish between that 15th, 16th, 17th position. And you've got kind of like the last few years, they haven't actually spent, well, they've invested a bit, but this year it feels like they have really tried to pull themselves out of that rut they're currently in. If we look at the transfer section, you can see Ethan Galbraith's the big one on a big fee. George Hurst has come in this week as well up front. Hurst, interestingly enough, for Ipswich, had a goal every 191 minutes, so just over a goal every other full game. It's not a bad return, although that is an Ipswich side who, were dominating in the league. Well, not dominating in the league, but was only high up in the league. He's kind of trying to fill the hole that they've been missing up front. He'll probably be preferred to Robert Bosnick, who didn't even start in their game last week. See, he was on the bench. Sam Gallagher got the nod up top, interestingly enough. So you think Hurst is probably going to slot straight in there. Sam Gallagher we've seen playing midfield more often than not over the last couple of seasons. So Stoke going into game one with him up top is a bit of a surprise. Other instructions: Graham in defence and Ingleton in midfield are solid enough players who you'd think, add some steel to them, add some reinforcements to them. But it's kind of going forward where it feels like they have a lot of potential, but it hasn't really come together over the last couple of seasons for them. Feels like a big weekend because they lost last weekend at home to Swansea, and I know it's only 2 games in, but if you lose your first two, and last week they weren't that great. They had just 2 shots in the final half an hour of the game when they were trailing. Like they weren't really creating anything. So I feel like they need to show a bit more here this weekend. Like if they do fall behind to Southampton, which could be very likely, but they just need to have something to them to show that they're not just going to roll over every time they fall behind. They just had 5 league wins in 2026, and 2 of those are in the first 4 days. So 3 league wins since January, and 2 of those were to relegated sides, Oxford and Sheffield Wednesday. So I mean, it's not been a great 2026, but they need something to go their way. Else I think the pressure might start to mount on Mark Robbins. Southampton, as I mentioned, they've got the 4-point deficit they need to overturn. I think it's interesting if you think that they finished level on points with Middlesbrough last season, and they are already 7 points behind them. I know it's 45 games to make up a big deficit, but it's just an interesting. It's going to be interesting mentally for them that is. You think that's a team that they were on par with. That's a team who are fancied to kind of be in a similar position, if not better, this year, and that's what Southampton are going to be aiming for, and they're already on the back foot in that race. Shea Charles in midfield is a loss for them as well, but Bragg's played plenty of football now. Flynn Downs is a great midfielder, so I kind of feel like they'll get past that loss. Harwood Bellis, I don't know if he'll play this weekend. He's been linked to moves to Aston Villa this week. Hasn't gone. I don't think they've accepted any offers yet, but that'll be an interesting one to keep an eye on. And then the interesting, quite big signing, taking away Peretz and Larin, who were there last season, is Lewis Dobbin. And we can see last week that Dobbin came in on the left, moving Scienza into the number 10 position. It didn't really work, and Southampton looked a bit flat until Azaz came on. Last year, you had Scienza on the left, Azaz in the middle, Fellows on the right. And whilst Fellows' numbers weren't incredible, they were that balance that he seemed to provide seemed to be much better than what they started off with last weekend. So be interested to see how they do line up there. Dobbin as well played, his loan at Preston saw him play probably the best football he's played in a while, and that mostly came from him playing off of a striker more centrally. So the fact that he's been signed for quite a lot of money and immediately been put out wide where he struggled in the Championship, it was a bit disappointing to see. I was kind of wondering if I wasn't overly keen on the transfer myself, but I was curious to see what they would do, and just putting him left wing is certainly not what was getting me excited about that move. So yeah, I think this is an interesting game because 2 teams who are probably going into it thinking, I mean, a lot like it's so early that a loss doesn't really do much, but a win probably does a lot. For a little win at St Mary's would do a lot for Stoke. And if Southampton can put last week behind them and move on to -1 point with a win here, then they'll be relishing the fact that they're within touching distance of teams already. So I think both teams just getting their first win is the big narrative going into this one. The second game that I find really interesting is West Ham Charlton, which is an East London derby. And very interestingly, as football have here, it's the first league game between the two sides since 2007, where both sides would have been in the Premier League Championship. I'm not actually 100% sure. 2007, West Ham Premier League, I feel. Yeah, surely. West Ham played well last week. For parts, they will be disappointed to draw 2-2 to Burnley, who certainly came on, and the fact that West Ham were 2-0 up would be a disappointment for them. They've actually strengthened in their attack this week more than anything else. They've had Joel Peru come in. They've had Macassar's come on loan from Man City. Midfielder Engels also comes in from Celtic for what is a league record fee, I believe. So that's going to be interesting to see where he slots in, if they stick with this 4-4-2/4-2-3-1 system, and with Engels coming in as instead of Kante or Orford, or if Engels is allowed to be freed up in a three-man midfield to move further forward. You could see him coming in for Pablo, for example. I think that would be give them a really, really solid midfield going into pretty much any championship game this season. Excited to see if he does play, where he does fit in. But the fact they've got Bowen, Castellanos, and Solomon, it's a front three that's just superior to anyone else's in the league, really. And that alone is going to win them a lot of games. They're back to Kilman and Mavropanos at this level is very good as well. Walker Peters has been great in the Championship many times. He's kind of been a player he got that move to the Premier League and didn't really make as much an impact as many thought he would. But he's great at this level. Hermansen, we've seen with Leicester, has been solid at this level before. And they've got depth. You've got Ward-Prowse came off the bench last week. Malik Diouf's still there and came off the bench last week. Areola's their backup keeper. You've got a few youngsters on the bench too. Joel Veltman brings a lot of experience. It's a really, really solid squad. And you kind of think their first home game of the league season, I feel like they should win this one. And it could very much be like their cup game against Portsmouth, where they did go down in that game, but then they came back. They were 2-1 up by halftime. Third goal in the second half. I can see them beating a Cheltenham side who did win on opening day against Derby. Really weird game. Derby scored early. Cheltenham kind of came back at them, but with no luck. And then Cheltenham scored 2 goals in the second half and didn't have another shot after that. Their final 2 shots of the game were their 2 goals. The final 2 shots, they only had 2 shots past the hour mark, and they scored both of them, and that was their 2 goals. So it's not like they were bombarding Derby to turn it around. They just created the 2 chances. That Jones won from the corner, and then Campbell, when they managed to open up down the left-hand side and finish them both, and that was it. If you're Derby, you're probably disappointed to lose that game. But that's what Charlton are going to need to do this season. They're going to need to win their home games. If you look at the table from last year, they finished above 2 sides that also didn't get relegated before the relegated 3. And those 2 sides were West Brom, who they only finished above because of the points deduction and who looked much better going into this season, and Blackburn, who, similar to Charlton, their reinforcements don't look incredible, but got a promising result on opening day. There's the fact that neither side is majorly improved. I feel like both those sides are going to be towards the bottom of the league going into the season. So Charlton, they're going to need to pick up wins and points where they can. Again, against West Ham is a tough one for them. So maybe this is more of if they can put in the performance, they'll they'll kind of take that if they can keep it tight, which Nathan Jones knows how to do. Then that's the angle for them. Yeah, I just think it's an interesting game. It's an East London derby. It hasn't been a league fixture for 19 years, and if West Ham win this and get rolling, we could be seeing like a really, really good Championship side on show. And anything but a West Ham win is going to come as a surprise and really, really buoy the Charlton fans. So, yeah, I'm excited for this one. In League One, then we've already had Bradford beating Sheffield Wednesday. Again, ignoring teams we've already spoke about. Luton, Notts County, spoke about both of those last week. Spoke about Leicester and we didn't speak about Luton. We spoke about Notts County though. When we spoke about Leicester, we spoke about MK and we spoke about Oxford. So excluding those 4 games, I think the first game I want to talk about is probably for completely different reasons. Is Peterborough Mansfield. Peterborough against Mansfield is the one catching my eye because of what happened in midweek, where Peterborough chairman Darren McAntony has lashed out at the fans. I'd say his quote was not his exact quote, but he said he called up social media fans for being unemployed and living in their grandmother's basement, and said that everything they say and do is just for reactions. And then he decided to call up all of the media around Peterborough as well. So that was interesting, saying that the local journalists all relish Peterborough losing games, which the local Peterborough newspaper have come out and said that just clearly isn't true, and they get much more viewership on their site when Peterborough are winning. So I think a very bizarre situation where a manager is blocking and calling out fans on Twitter and or X. It's all a bit weird. I don't really know what to make of it, and like the fans' frustration is genuine. They in the second half of last season, they averaged less than a point per game. They were terrible. They have 1 win in the league in 16 games. They have not won a league game in 10. So I mean, it's bleak. They look terrible for months now. And in the summer, they've if we have a look at their transfer business on screen here. Arch Collins leaves for free. Lisby goes to Millwall again. Like, that's their model. Like, Lisby being sold for money after being bought a year ago. But the replacements have taken a while to come in. Ethan Williams is young. Comes from Manchester United. Hasn't really looked like a League One starting winger in his loan so far. Or Edwards from Colchester makes that step up, but he didn't start last week. He came off the bench for them. He's I actually don't know if he was injured or not, but they've actually had youngster Shofawoke starting their games in pre-season in the cup and now the league. So he's certainly an exciting prospect for fans. But again, it's this: they're just coming out and throwing kids at it and hoping for the best. I think Jones is an interesting midfielder and Kelly's a good signing, but at the same time, I don't think I just can't see the fact they would have beaten other League One teams to them. It's all just a bit so for a team who had relegation form for months and are just just feels like they're just kind of treading water a little bit going into this season. I think this is an interesting game because of that and because it's their first home game of the season. And if Mansfield, who I think this lineup on screen here, you can ignore it. It was their lineup in the cup in the EFL Trophy in midweek. So yeah, it's not accurate what they're doing. Let's get last week's lineup. Mansfield, who got a 2-1 win last week, who looked really good in the process, who, have just a clear way of playing. You've got target man Smith up front, and you've got Reece Oates, who was phenomenal last season. Off of him, they keep John Russell. You have Reed, who's a great midfielder for this level, and Liam Thompson, who looked brilliant last week. You've got that blend of, you've got a lot of experience, and a lot of people might think they've got too much experience in the team, but you've got you've got goals in Oates, you've got quality in Reed and Thompson and Russell. Like, it's just kind of building around these players and putting them on the right platform to succeed, which I think Clough is doing. And they looked good last week. I listened to their cup game at Sheffield United, where they were just kind of outclassed by Sheffield United, but I don't think that was a warning sign, at least. So yeah, I think I think Mansfield going into this game, they'll smell blood here. They'll know that if they can beat Peterborough, then after they ended last season really well, they only had 3 losses in the second half of last season, but they had 12 draws. So for them, it's like winning games like this. It's turning games where last season they probably would come here, taking a point and gone home. It's like if they can come here and win, all of a sudden, for them, their season aspirations turn from like lower to mid-table into the top half, and you never know into the playoffs if you can get a good run going. Like, there's a lot of big teams this year up that side of the league, but if they can win games like this, like they surely will be in the conversation. So yeah, that's why my eyes immediately drew to this game, because Peterborough seem like a mess, but they have quality out there and they have a really good manager. And Mansfield, if Mansfield can win these games, then I'm excited to see what they can do. The second game then is Stockport against Blackpool. Similarly, anyone watching on screen, the Stockport lineup is from their trophy games, so you can kind of ignore that from their last starting 11. But yeah, Stockport got off to a really good start last week under McNulty. They looked calm in a 3-1 win over Argyle. They were 2-0 up pretty quickly, scored a third just after half time. They basically controlled the game for 50 minutes, went 3-0 up, capitalised on mistakes. They did everything you need to do in an away game. And then once they were 3-0 up, they kind of took the foot off the gas and just held Argyle at bay until they got a late consolation goal. So yeah, I think it's like the perfect away performance, the perfect start for them under McNulty. And the key for them this year, I think, will just be is like consistency. Like they've gone and got a good away win. Can they cement that back at home? Can they beat this Blackpool side? And before you know it, that could then lead on to them, starting to be put back in those playoff and promotion conversations. Because I think a lot of people thought after losing Challoner, after you've got the managerial change up, they're going to have to reset, and it's going to be like a transitional year. And I think last week showed that it doesn't have to be. And there was one game, but like they beat a side who are also fancy for the playoffs. They beat them comfortably, and if they can repeat their performance here, then I think they will be an early pace setter. They could be a team that all of a sudden are on people's minds for those playoff positions. Blackpool, meanwhile, like the story for them is almost striker injuries, maybe just injuries in general. They've got Dale Taylor, who they signed for $1 million last summer, injured. Niall Ellis scores in the EFL Cup and then gets injured. It's painful for them that they just can't seem to keep the same strikers on the pitch week in, week out. Kwasi and Hamilton playing further forward last week, it's just a bit disjointed. Hamilton's played a lot of football at wing back, left mid. You feel like this team here is more suited to like a 4-4-2 or 4-3-3 with Bowler on the right, Hamilton out on the left, and have a striker down the middle, or two. You've got Dion Charles and Bloxham on the bench to come on. Charles and Kwasi could be a front two, or like having a midfield three of Brown, Anderson, and in my opinion now Morgan could be an interesting way to get Anderson kind of moving further forward, to get Morgan back on the ball, back to his best, and have Brown sitting in behind. I don't know. It feels like Just feels like their team they've got a lot of they've got centre back injuries at the moment as well, with Horsfall's out and Hipway's out as well. So it just feels a bit disjointed at the moment for them. But last weekend they did create a lot. They had this third most shots of anyone in a League One game last weekend, but they were behind from the 7th minute. So I feel like if they fall behind here, like whilst Wickham kind of let them have those shots, like we saw that Stockport didn't let Argyle back into the game until it was 3-0. Like if Blackpool fall behind here, they're not going to have those chances to rack up that shot count. So they need to be more clinical. They need to do something to create better chances, basically. But yeah, so like I think it's an interesting game because you've got one side, new manager, despite being playoff finalists, who are looking to kind of show why they should be in those conversations to be back up there again against a side who feels like I've underwhelmed for the last couple of seasons, and last weekend just felt like opening day just fell a little bit flat for them. So interesting to see what both these teams do here. Into League Two then. So last week we spoke about Salford, we spoke about Barnet, we spoke about York, and we spoke about Bristol Rovers. So excluding those 4 games, the first game I think I want to talk about is Walsall and Grimsby. The reason, well, you've got a side with a new manager, Lee Grant, who picked up a really good opening day win, who have kind of flirted with really good starts of seasons before falling away. Obviously, they had the famous Matt Sadler one where they were miles clear at Christmas 2 seasons ago and finished in 4th and then lost in the playoffs. And you've got a Grimsby side who I've seen a lot of people favour. A lot of people have up there for automatic promotion fights. And, they got off to a winning start last week and be looking to push on. I think they're an interesting proposition. So Walsall, 3-0 win over Gillingham last weekend. They faced quite a bit of pressure throughout, but they kept themselves in the game and they were clinical late on. I mentioned in the fantasy section, which is coming up later again today, that I thought Aaron Presley could be a good shout for a sub-point pick. He was 0% picked or 0.1% picked by the time of the show. And he got a goal and an assist to cement that being a good pick for myself. And yeah, basically all came to fruition that Gillingham's defence just wasn't really that great. And once Walsall kind of rode the pressure, they capitalised really late on. They had 2 late goals to make the scoreline look better, but still they were deserving of that win. And I think it's just an interesting team lining up 4-4-2 last week. I think they had been playing a back 5 in the cup, so it's interesting to see Dallas up there with Presley. But yeah, I think they are a side who have options, who in Lee Grant have a young manager who showed at Huddersfield he can play really good attacking football. And if they keep up these results, it's consistency. Like you've got Lee Grant who kind of things fell a little bit away from last year, and you've got Walsall who are used to having that happen to them as well. So hopefully they don't bring out the worst in each other on the second half of the season. They bring out the best in each other, and if they do, then this Walsall side could be really good. I think they're set up to succeed. Grimsby, meanwhile, they had a 1-0 win over Exeter. They had these the most shots of anyone in the league. It was only 1-0 for them, but they dominated that game against Exeter. They just couldn't convert. But in Andy Cook, you're not too worried. Like, they got the win. You've got a striker there who will score goals given the chances. They've got Ewan Morgan, who's coming from Brentford as the KBO replacement. You've got Josh Andrews there up front, who has kind of a different option for them. Their midfield 3 of Green, Tory, and Doyle, who's coming from Ireland, is good, is exciting, is balanced. And then Vernon, we know, can score goals and provide assists. Hamaluza on the other wing, solid option. I think like that. There's no real real question marks on either of these teams. If I have a look at Grimsby's summer business, like the outgoings, it's KV is the one, and everything else is you live with that. It's fine. It's nothing too concerning for them. So yeah, you've got Cook turns his loan permanent. Reynolds turns his loan permanent. Comes back on loan again. Doyle, as you mentioned, signs permanently. Morgan and Andrew provide those attacking options. I think if they, it's a good team if they maybe just have like one more player come in who can, maybe in the midfield, who just can also add goals. I know Green added a lot of goals there last year. Maybe Doyle will be that player. But then, if Doyle's that player, if they add a different player who can add those goals, I think they'll be right up there for promotion conversations. So I think, I wanted to talk about these teams early on because you've got two sides who definitely could be looking towards the upper part of the league should things go right. And then our final game we want to talk about is Swindon versus Cheltenham. I think the narrative going into this one is you have a side who last season started off really well and fell off a cliff basically and missed out on the playoffs altogether, against a side who have made a lot of signings this summer and are hoping this time to land on something that is much improved to avoid the continual bottom half finishes. So the side who fell off, Swindon Town, they had the lowest shots of anyone last week. They had just 4 shots away at Northampton. It just feels a bit. It just feels like things are just kind of falling away from them as you go. I'm going to call out this lineup a little bit because I don't think Tom Nichols was playing that deep for them. He's listed here as the defensive midfielder in a 4-1-4-1, which would surprise me. But we've seen weirder things happen. Like they have names, they have players. Like I've actually highlighted the age thing here because they actually have quite a young, like a sprinkling of young and old players. Like their defense, Negru and Magico Dummy, Kirkman, 24, 22, 22. Middlemass and Millard on the wings, 21, and Millard's even younger. But then you've got experienced EFL players in Clark, Ollie Clark, Matt Virtue, Tom Nichols, Aaron Drennan, who got loads of goals last year, and Mitch Clark at right back, and Connor Ripley in goal. So you've got the balance there, but it just doesn't seem to really be clicking for them right now. In pre-season, Holloway called the squad Tin Pot Garbage. So that was a month ago, but I think it kind of just shows where his thought process is at. If we have a look at their transfer business this summer, let's try and get this. They, it's League Two. It's always going to be a lot of free transfers, but Munder's come in today. Inwards, like the loanies are all. You've got three younger players, as we said there. They've got a lot of young players anyway. 4 young loanies come in. A young centre back who they're starting. Another young centre back who they're starting. Like Virtue and Clark are basically the only 2 kind of experienced players they've been able to pick up. Hongbo's 26. He's very hit and miss. Could be a great signing for them if he shows more of the good days than the bad ones. But again, like didn't make it into the first team last week. They've there was just a lot of stuff in that squad that probably needed to go. It probably got too bloated, but there's just nothing in there that's really exciting me either way. Like I don't think there's anyone there that you're overly disappointed to see leave, but at the same time there's just no one coming in that's kind of making me think that this Swindon team are going to suddenly be different to the one that were pretty poor for the second half of last season. Cheltenham, on the other hand, they've made a lot of signings. They had six of their new boys started last week. So let me just point this out. So last week, Stanway, Sweeney, McCann, Shipley, McWilliams, and Ochere all starting last week, new players. So it was just Broom, Cundy, Stevenson, and Tomkinson, and Nurse, who were there last season. So it feels like a complete reset. Andreas Weiermann's quite an interesting signing coming in. They picked up two lads from Barrow who were relegated. Stanway had a lot of potential, it felt like, a few years ago. Kind of got stuck in the Barrow team. Charlie McCann got a goal last week. He's an interesting one. Jordan Shipley, great player. Kind of feel like he was destined for bigger things, and he's kind of ended up in League One, League Two. But honestly, a really good player, I think, keeping consistent. And Joe Tomlinson had a really, really good season 2 years back with MK Dons 3 years back. If they can get him anywhere near that level, then that's going to be a great signing. It's like with a lot of League Two teams. You have to take gambles on the unknowns or players who maybe have, like McWilliams and Shipley, who have kind of had potential but have kind of gone backwards a bit, and hoping that they can be on the front foot. Like, this team really does have potential to be great, like to push themselves up the league. But last week against Rotherham, they got the win at home, but they were under pressure throughout that game, and they had just the 6 shots. They conceded a lot of chances to Rotherham, who couldn't put anything away, but they won 2-1. So if they can ride out games like that and then start to play with a bit more assurance, a bit like it's a lot of new signings to blend in, so a bit more coming together, performances get better. Like, if when they're not playing that well, they beat Rotherham 2-1, then when they're playing well, like, this could be a promising team in League Two. So I realised I've not done any predictions for any of these games so far, so I'm going to start here and then we'll work our way back. I think this one, the interesting result is Cheltenham going to Swindon and winning. Like, if Swindon lose here, I feel like you've got a team who are going to be quite disappointed. A manager who's going to be frustrated, and I think they can. I think Cotterill can get this Cheltenham side firing, and I think they've got a lot of promise. And I'm going to say Cheltenham go here and win 1-0. I'm going to quickly go back and say that Walsall Grimsby, I think I can see this ending 2-2. Goal scored. I'm not really sure which team I prefer here, with Walsall having a home advantage. I think it's at Grimsby. I'll take Grimsby, but seeing as it's Walsall, I'm going to take a 2-2 draw. And then into the 2 League One games, Stockport Blackpool, I'm going to say Stockport win. I'm going to say they win 2-1, maybe 3-1 again. I don't want to repeat their score from last week, but I think I'll say 2-1 Stockport. I think they'll win this. I think Blackpool might get a consolation late on. But I think Stockport look good. The other one I had was Peterborough Mansfield. I'm going to say Mansfield go there and win 1-0. And it's the interesting result. It's a result I feel like is, the narrative is better that happens. I feel like it's better that Mansfield beat Peterborough for just interest going forward, basically. It's nothing against Peterborough at all. Just kind of the way it is. I feel like a Peterborough win does nothing for neutral interest. West Ham Charlton, I think West Ham win this. I'm going to say 3-0. I think they win this to 0. I just think this might be a tough game for Charlton. And Southampton Stoke, Southampton should win this, and I think they will. Stoke, I think, maybe give them a couple more weeks if Hurst comes in this weekend and they can create chances for him, it would be interesting. But I think Southampton win this. I'm going to say 2-0 Southampton. And that brings us to those 6 fixtures that I had. I think the next thing I want to do is quickly dive into my FPL. My fantasy EFL team for the week. This is my team. I've got Madison in goal. As I just mentioned there, I think West Ham will beat Charlton with a clean sheet. So I'm happy to take the clean sheet. Opportunity there. He's like the save stats. I don't think are going to really come into play. Charlton didn't really create too many chances in game 1, and I think they're going to struggle in game 2. So yeah, I don't feel like I need to emphasize the saves here too much. My next one is Aluwu for Salford. Salford conceded 3 goals last week, but Aluwu is always a goal threat. He had 12 points last week from scoring, and he also had 4 bonus points alone. Chesterfield looks well. They haven't scored. They didn't score in the league last week. They didn't score in the cup the week before. I think while it's early on this, they seem to just not be firing. I'm just going to hope that Salford can keep that clean sheet, and if they don't, then I know that Aluwu is always a threat from set pieces. He had a 6.8 point average last season, so no, definitely happy to go with him. Bright Asai Samuel, 9 points last week thanks to his 4 tackles and a clean sheet. He's they're at home to a Bristol City side, Birmingham, so it's kind of a clean sheet angle here again, and then knowing that he can pick up tackles. Bristol City, they played a lot of last week with 10 men, but they had 0 shots on target against Millwall, so they need something to change, and Birmingham away is a tough one to do that. So I'm happy to get my clean sheet here, and the kind of opens up any Birmingham goalkeeper defender. Asai Samuel for me, I just feel like fullback, you've got that attacking intent. He'll be probably up against Sam Greenwood. I think there's a chance that Bristol City try and feed Greenwood the ball more, and then Asai Samuel have more chances to make tackles. Mill was right back last week. Ryan Leonard had a bonus point thanks to 5 clearances. He did get a tackle in, but Bristol City faded away, so there was never a chance for the second. I think there'll be chances here for Samuel. And then my sub-point pick, who is still 0.1% selected, which is good, is Sean Rooney. Rooney last season had a 5-point average with over 2 tackles and 6 clearances per 90 minutes he played. So that's already 2 bonus points there. Last week, he did pick up a bonus point with 2 tackles. He was 1 clearance short of the next one. They're at home to Gillingham, who I kind of got against last week as well with Walsall, with Presley. I'm going against them again. They had created quite a lot of chances last week, but didn't score. They played 2 games and lost them both 3-0 now. Won the cup, won the league. And I think that I'd be happy to back Fleetwood to keep a clean sheet. At home, they've also kept 2 clean sheets in their league/cup games. So Rooney here stands out to me as a sub-point pick, 0.1, and hoping to go back to back on those picks after Presley's 12 points last week. In midfield then, Casey Palmer, big pick. He's up to 18% selected. Lovely, 18% selected, 18 average points. 2 goals last week. He has 4.7 point average last season. He has a goal every basically every other game already, and they face a Notts County side who, to be fair, have had 2 decent showings, but a team who lose them at home will fancy themselves against. Palmer's like he feels like the one the chances fall to more than anyone else, and he's someone who on his day is far too good for League One. So I feel like 18 points might be like a big sway, but I just feel like he's too good. And then Norwell is my captain currently. As I mentioned, I fancy Stockport to go and win again. Last week, his points all came from interceptions. He's been good for interceptions in general, but like he's been great for everything. Last year, he had a 7.7 point average. I think they're going to be allowed to have chances here against Blackpool. He has over an interception a game, over 2 key passes per 90 minutes as well. He had 8 goals, 14 assists last season. He takes set pieces. Blackpool conceded a corner last week, and Onyedema scored from it. So it makes you feel like that's not even just like they've got centre-back issues already, and then you've got Ollie Norwood who will be coming in and taking corners against you. Like I feel like there's a chance here for the assist as well. So yeah, definitely willing to captain Ollie Norwood here for chances both ways, chances with interceptions and chances with assists. And if they get a penalty here, he should be on it. And up front, again, someone who a big sway from last week with Jack Marriott. He had a 7.1 average last season, 0.81 goals per 90 is the best in any League One player last season. So he's always a goal threat. He takes 2.75 shots with 1.53 shots on target per 90. Only issue was his minutes last week, but I mean, it didn't matter. He got a hat trick in the hour he did play. And I feel like if you're building him back up to fitness, then this week he should play more. On top of that as well, away to Wimbledon, conceded 3 goals on opening day. They didn't look that good the week before in the cup. I did see them look quite good in pre-season in a couple of games, but they still gave away chances in those games. So I think Marriott's going to have chances here, and he's clinical enough to take them. So yeah, definitely willing to get Jack Marriott. Wolves, my first team. I just think they should be too good for Preston, who lost last week to Bolton, and they looked pretty poor in the first half while doing so. Just far too open. Wolves are going to punish moments like that, let alone Bolton. So yeah, definitely willing to do that. They also did get the 2 goals last week. I know they conceded twice, but I can see a Preston side who don't look as attacking as Blackburn, sitting too deep here and letting Wolves, take over the game and giving them the away win, which is what we're after again. And then Barnet, who were great last week in their 3-1 win, winning 3-1 against Salford and just getting the 7 points feels low, but that is how it goes. They're against a Shrewsbury side who lost 2-0 to Tranmere in Gameweek 1. Had 8 losses at home last season. Barnet had 11 wins away from home, which is the joint most in League 2 last season, and obviously they won really well last week. So yeah, that's my fantasy team going into this week. And that brings us to the end of the stream / podcast. Thanks everyone for listening. Do give us any feedback on this format going into the weekend. We've tried to add the live aspect to get people involved. Obviously, if people can't really make / listen to that, then we'll have a rethink about getting this out earlier for more coverage. But for now, I think we're willing to trial the idea. There's not really any live preview EFL content. Preview EFL content in general is quite sparse, so definitely a market we want to give you guys for sure. So yeah, let us know any feedback. Enjoy your weekend of EFL football and Premier League football. That is back to it's an exciting one. I'm looking forward to just having lots and lots of football to go for on Saturday. So yeah, thanks everyone, and take it easy.